Good morning, class, and welcome to 2021 contact lessons for Agricultural Education 3, which is Bes Age42. My name is Abraham Sholongela, and I'm your tutor for these modules. Before we start our lessons for this morning, I would like you to take note that may you have problems after this presentation. Please feel free to contact me on my mobile, which is 081-4438-360, or you may send me an email address at shektambavictory@gmail.com. So these are my personal contact if there's any other thing that you want clarity on regarding these modules, Agricultural Education 3. I say welcome to Agricultural Education 3. And I would like to wish you all to be hardworking, dedicated, and self-driven students in this course. These presentations cover the subject content in brief and some general guidelines that I want everyone to keep in mind when preparing for 2021 examination. In this presentation this morning, I will discuss some of the content of your study guide in order to help you prepare for the coming exams. I said some of the content because they have limited time. So therefore I say some of the content. I'm not going to cover everything, but some of the content of your study guide just to help you to prepare for your 2021 exams. By now, I understand that you should have a good idea what the subject is all about as you have completed your assignment. Please, I also want you to take note that I cannot give attention to the whole content. So, should you have any questions regarding these modules or the lesson I'm about to give to you, please contact me for help. The following presentation also that I'm going to give you, it will just highlight on some important aspects and units in these modules. So I'm not going to cover really everything, and as I say that just I will touch on the most important aspect that I believe is more crucial as you are going to prepare for your examinations. Now, as you prepare for your examination also, I urge you to use your study guide and go deeper, study and understand most of the things in your study guide to prepare for your examination. And if there's anything that you don't understand, feel free to contact me. So let us look at the general issues in agriculture without wasting time. So looking at the general issues in agriculture, I want us to look at the economic importance of agriculture to the Namibian economy. So the economic importance of agriculture to the Namibian economy is that agriculture is a provider of food, and it provides about 39% and even 19% to the total maize and wheat consumptions requirements of Namibia, respectively. Agriculture, it also supplies about 100% of the total beef or even mutton and pure millet consumptions. It provides employment. It provides incomes. It provides foreign exchange in the economy. It creates demands for capital investment and increases the productivity of workers. It supports other sectors such as transport, manufacturing, plastic packaging, and etc. The agriculture sectors also sustains about 70% of the Namibian population, either directly or indirectly. It contributes on average of 2% to the total manufacturing output of Namibia. So basically that's the economic importance of agriculture to the Namibian economy. But I urge you to go through your study guides and study these things. Continuing with general issues in agriculture, or this aspect of general issues in agriculture, I would like us to look at the initiatives to embark upon in order to enhance the output of agricultural sector in Namibia. And these initiatives, mostly it include but are not limited to, we have the Affirmative Action Loan Scheme. We also have the National Agricultural Credit Program, NSP. We have also the green schemes, and also a ban on export of live animals to South Africa. These are the initiatives that are being embarked upon in order to enhance the output of the agriculture sector in Namibia. And I want you to look at them and to study them closely. Now, objective of sustainable agriculture. So there are objectives, or sustainable agriculture have objectives. So, or it aims to, or sustainable agriculture mostly it aims to produce safe and healthy food. And it also conserves natural resources. It protects useful insects. Those are useful insects that are used for pollination of crops. Ensure economic viability, and also manage the countryside. It also improves quality of life in farming area, and also to ensure animal welfare. Let us also continue with the roles of natural resources in agriculture. So in short, the roles of natural resources are, they are critical agricultural inputs. They also make us able to produce food and feed. This is now food security. These are the roles of natural resources in agriculture. They give shelters, and also it's like they give us shelter, and it also give our animals shelters. These are the natural resources. They provide raw materials for the food and non-food processing industries. Apart from capital and skills, natural resources are key factors of production and for wealth creation in our economy. There are also factors that degrade natural resources. Yes, which are these factors that degrade natural resources? Overgrazing. Overgrazing referring to many animals or to a number or densely population of animals grazing in a small area. And the animal and the areas end up being overgrazed with no plants on it anymore. And such exercise of practice, it degrades our natural resources. Deforestation is one of them. This one is caused by, or is a process of continuously cutting down trees without allowing for the new one to grow. So this was also causes deforestation, and they totally destroy or degrade our natural resources. Inappropriate agricultural practices, for example, overuse of pesticides or anything that causes land, air, and water pollutions. So then also coming to the general issues in agriculture, that one I want us to look at also as we are continuing with general issues. There are so many issues of covered under these aspects, and I want you to go in your study guide and study that aspect of general issues in agriculture closely. So there are also even those diseases that attack plant. These are common plant diseases that one will encounter in their gardens. We have the powdery mildew, the black spot, the dumping of the rust. These are the diseases. I want you to go in your study guide and study in details these diseases. Let us look at another aspect, which is the aspect of sheep, goats, farming, and also marketing. There are requirements for shelters of sheep or goats in terms of durability and cost effectiveness. The requirements are that sheep and goat shelter should be strong enough to last a long time. And the requirements are also that sheep and goat shelter, it should be large enough for the number of animals to be accommodated comfortably. It should be large enough. And then it must also allow freedom of movement for all animals. It must be well drained. It must be easy to keep, well maintained, with dry bedding and easy to clean. It should receive morning sunshine evenly. It must not just be dark. No. It must be well ventilated. There should be adequate air circulations, very low dust levels, comfortable temperatures, and relatively air humidity. It should also have a low ammonia gas concentration from waste materials. Why? Because ammonia should be at a level that will not harm animals' respiratory systems. The shelter should have suitable isolation pens for the sick or injured animals. Because animals that are sick must not be kept among the healthy animals. This is to avoid transmissions of diseases. Again, we are continuing with the aspect of sheep or goat farming and the marketing. When planning for a shelter for a sheep and goats, it requires attention to the following housing features. When you are just planning for a shelter, when you want to establish a new shelter for sheep and goats, so attention should be given to the following features. Very special, where to locate animal housing is very important. The orientation, like an overview of the housing or the shelter. Then the ventilations. Ventilation, we are referring to the circulations of air or airflow. Material for building an animal barn. Type of housing, for example, maybe roofing, the walls. Space requirements. Production system to be used. So these are the attention should be given to these things when you are planning for a shelter. Space and also the production system to be used. Is it a commercial? Is it going to be commercial for commercial purposes or just only for sustainable farming? Or for example, maybe is it intensive or extensive farming? So the production system, it matters a lot. So looking at the aspect of sheep and goat farming and marketing again, let us look at also at reasons for ensuring ventilation system in sheep and goat houses with raised floors. We have said that one of the key requirements that you should look at is the ventilation system. Now, what are the reasons for ensuring ventilation system in sheep and goats with raised floors? Raised slated floors have the following advantage. No need of bedding. Manure, urine, and debris drop through the slated floor, making removal hassle-free, and this is a good way of removing a major source of diseases in the parasite infestations. Less labor is required to clean and also to maintain. The floor generally remains relatively dry and clean. You can use less space requirements. Manure can be collected easily to fertilizers, crops, or processing it for sale. Air passes through the slate, improving ventilation. Exotic breeds are, I want us to look at that definition of exotic breeds before, because when you talk of exotic, I want you to look at what does it mean when you talk of exotic breeds. Exotic breeds are used for crossbreeding. Exotic itself means foreign and it's not native. It's something that has been brought in. It's not origin of that nation or area. Now, an exotic is developed somewhere and brought to an area where it's not, or where it's not naturally originating from. So they have crossed with the indigenous ones and product artificially bred offspring. They will be producing yield much better than the indigenous ones. So that's not the main of this crossbreedings or exotic breeding. It's normally for productivity purposes or for producing yield, much better than the indigenous one, because indigenous ones, they are too slow for growth or productions. Now, let us look at the common diseases and parasites of sheep and goats. So there are many types of disease or many various diseases or parasites that mostly attack sheep and goats, and they are mostly common. I want you to go in your study guides and look at diseases that attack sheep and diseases or pests that attack sheep, and also diseases and pests that attack also. They are common, they are the same. So I want you to look at that and understand those common parasite and disease that attack sheep and goats. Now, the different aspect of sheep, of course, again, this aspect is continuing. And as you go in your study guides, I want you to make sure that you touch most of the things on these aspects in your study guides. Let us look at the common nutritional disorders or problems to watch out for in sheep and goats. Yes, it is very important to feed your animals or for your animal to graze on a healthy, natural grazing area. But as a farmer, you need to watch out, because there are some common nutritional disorders that are caused by those feed or natural feeds as the animals are grazing out there. So another one of the common nutritional disorders that we experience is bloating. Bloating sometimes afflicts sheep or goats that are grazed on large growing legume pasture. Bloat is a buildup of gases in the rumen. When you talk about something that is bloating, it's just buildup of gases in the rumen or maybe the stomach. So one part of the stomach and can lead to death if not properly treated. Bloat is also caused by rapid fermentation in the rumen and is most commonly associated with rapid consumptions of large quantities of green legumes. If your plant, that's why you need to watch out that your animals must not continuously and constantly just feeding on green legumes. It have a healthy effects on that, or a negative healthy impact on your sheep or goats or on your small stocks. So avoid feeding them there on regular basis or continuously. An animal that is suffering from bloating can be treated by now various means, but the best solution to this problem is now to prevent the condition by carefully or management of feeding and grazing practices. As I say, that just maybe to keep, or for example, say the best way to prevent bloating is to keep small ruminants from overeating on those large legumes pastures. This can be accomplished by introducing the smaller ruminants gradually to such pastures. You see, as I said it already. So that's how you control or to avoid animals from this type of infections or disease. But another one is also now, another common nutritional disorder is the grass tetany. This one is characterized by trembling and sometimes convulsions and the death of animals. So the animals start to be shaking and also convulsions, weak, and sometimes if not attended to, the animal will just die. This condition most often it occurs when small ruminants are turned into grass pastures and is caused by a deficiency of magnesiums in the forage. Grass tetany is most common where soil have low levels of this nutrient. Magnesiums can be added to the feed, especially to that of lactating small ruminants. Rotating animals between legumes and grass pastures may also help prevent both bloat and grass tetany. Main objectives of record keeping in the management of animals. So there is also an aspect of record keeping that I want you to take notes of. And in your study guide, there's a lot of information about record keeping, and I want you to go in your study guide and understand every aspect of record keeping in your study guide. Because why do we keep record keeping? What are the objects of record keeping? Normal are to identify animals belong to, in this case, or schools. Because when you have the proper record keeping, that will help you to identify animals to where they belong. It also shows evidence of proof of ownership. It also uses them as a management tool. So record keeping is a very powerful management tool. Undertake performance evaluation, perform genetic selections. It also keeps proper health records, accurately measure production and reproduction, account for deaths and losses due to diseases, parasite, or lacewing and predators, account for sales and purchases, perform other important management functions required to run an effective and efficient school livestock farm enterprise. So now looking at this, continuing with the aspect of, we have already looked at the aspect of record keeping. We have looked at the aspect of sheep and goat farmings. Now this module also covers fish farmings. It's one of the crucial aspects that I want us to look at when it comes to aspect of fish farming. It's very important. So agriculture covers a lot of things. So we can also farm with fish. Now, let us look at some ways of preventing and controlling the common fish parasite. Fish also need to be taken care of. They are also sensitive to other diseases, and also there are also parasites that also attack fish and cause harm to fish. And I also want you to go in your study guide also and study and understand this type of parasites that normally attack fish, and also even the diseases that attack fish. And as we cover this aspect of fish also, I want you to look at other aspects of other issues related to fish farming. For example, there are also methods of harvesting fish. In your study guide, I want you to look closely in your study guide. Study these things. There are pests and diseases that attack fish. There are also methods of harvesting fish. There are also other ways of managing fish. For example, before you also make a simple aquarium for the fish, you need to write out the main requirements of your fish as follow. For example, if there's clean water, make sure there's enough space. It's just when you're creating a small aquarium for your fish, simple aquarium. So you need clean water. You also need enough space for that. Then you must also identify the feed. Then also waste disposal. For example, those ammonia and carbon dioxide, because really ammonia and carbon dioxide really have a negative impact on survivals of fish. Then make sure that there's enough oxygen. The temperature must be also conducive or desirable for the fish growth. The pH range of 6 to 8.5 must be considered. Suitable material for holding the water, for example, the glass bowl, it's also needed. Make sure that your aquarium will be able to meet these minimum requirements of the fish. I have, as I said already, that this subject of fish farming covers a lot, and I said that I also want you to cover the methods of harvesting fish. Yes, we have a lot, basically quite few numbers of them on how do we harvest fish, because Yes, fish are also needed for consumptions. It's also a source of nutrients or source of proteins. But how do we harvest fish? So we have got few methods of harvesting fish, which can be draining water from pond. It's very simple. Sometimes we just drain out all the water from that pond where fish was farmed, and then it can be easily for you to just remove all the fish that were grown or farmed in that specific pond. And so use of basket traps. Yes, traditionally we see this practiced in the villages where people are using these baskets to trap fish. So using fish just randomly, you just throw the basket anywhere randomly, and then if the fishes catch up, you will see the reactions of that there are fish in the basket, and then you just collect it. So it's this method has been practiced mostly by our forefathers in the past. It's one of the old technology, but it still is being practiced. Using fishing nets is also commonly used. Using a hook, line, and also a sinker, or this one can be also used to harvest fish. A good harvesting techniques will make it easier to produce good quality fish, because you also make sure that the harvesting method that you apply does not cause harm or does not deteriorate the quality of the fish that you want to market. Because sometimes you are catching fish not just for your personal consumptions, but or not just for home consumption, but for marketing purposes. Now, if it is for marketing purposes, make sure that the techniques that you apply for harvesting fish, make sure that it's easier to produce good quality fish, that the fish are not being bruised or destroyed, because if the fish are bruised or injured by the harvesting techniques or methods, then that fish will not be good for marketing. It will be rejected. So aspect of fish farming, again we are continuing with that one. I also want you to, when it comes to fish farming also, on this aspect, I also want you to look at what could one observe before harvesting all fish in the pot. You cannot just go say that you're going to harvest fish on the pot. So there are things that you need to observe before you start to harvest. And what are those things? When you decide to harvest all fish in the pot, now observe the following. So do not give the fish feed for 2 or 3 days beforehand. Make sure that you don't feed them. Manage your pot so that draining is done efficiently. When draining fish pots, remove water slowly also. And at the end, collect fish from the water pools by hand and from muddy bottom if necessary. Now, apart from this, I want you to go to your study guides and get to know various ways of preserving fish, and also the parasites that affect fish and their symptoms. In this module, I also want us to look at the aspect of plant production. There are 3 agricultural chemical classes that are commonly used by plant growers, which are as follows. This chemical is pesticide, or it can be herbicide, or it can be fertilizers. So all these ones are used by plant growers in order to make sure that their plants are protected from harmful diseases or pests. Now, I want you in your study guide just to look at action plant growers should take in order to minimize residues when these agrochemicals are used during the growing phase and before harvest time. Yes, these chemicals are being used, the pesticide, the herbicide, and fertilizers, to the benefits of the crops, but yet these chemicals, they also leave some residues that might be harmful to consumers. And now I want you to go and look at how can you minimize these residues. in your study guides. So, and I also want you to look in, when you're looking at the aspect of plant production also, I want you to compare and understand the process of photosynthesis and also respirations. So these are processes. Plant need to, this process is very important, the photosynthesis and also the respirations. I want you to understand it and get to understand the process. Okay? For example, for photosynthesis, it can always take place in the presence of light. And respiration occurs at all times in the cells. So that's why I say look at that comparison, how you can compare between photosynthesis and respirations. I also want you to look at the benefits of controlling plant disease and pests. So when it comes to control pests and diseases in your farm, it has benefits. Yes, it also has some costs, but yet it also have some benefits. I want you to go to your study guides and look at these costs that are involved in this controlling plant and diseases, and also at the benefits. Now we have come to, or before we come to an end of our presentation or of our contact lesson for 2021, I would like to emphasize on something here. Or I would like us to touch on how to prepare for your examinations. So before you come to examination, I want you to ensure that you have all the study materials or resources required for these specific modules. Make sure that you have the right modules in your hands with the right code. As I say, this module is Agriculture Education 3, Bes Age42. That is the module code. Make sure that you have the right study guide in place. And please ensure that you also spend enough time reading those prescribed materials and to follow the instruction carefully so as to ensure that you do not waste unnecessary time and effort. And I want you to take time also to first acquaint yourself with the content of the module by reading through the materials carefully. Also make sure you understand the verbs used very well. For example, those terms, the verbs define, clarify, discuss, describe, analyze, etc. They are there in your study guide. Look at them. For example, so that when the question comes to say discuss or describe or clarify, you know how to tackle the question. And then also always pay attention to the marks allocated to each question and answer accordingly, according to the marks allocated. I don't want a case whereby the question is only allocated 2 marks and you are giving the whole history. Or the questions is indicating 15 marks and you are only giving 1 sentence or 2 sentences. Please answer according to the mark allocated to the question. When you read the question, also check the marks allocated to it. Never leave any question unanswered or blank. Very important, because we have encountered this several times from the students. Leaving questions just like that unanswered. Now, you wonder, how will I make this student pass if some of the questions are not answered at all? There is no a wrong answer. And you can answer according to how you understand the questions. General knowledge is very important. You do not need to memorize the whole contents of the modules, but you just need to read and understand the contents in general, so that you will be able to understand and answer the questions in general. So please try all your level best and put at least something there. That thing that you are thinking, that answer that you have in your mind might be the correct one. Please make sure you put it down and don't leave any question blank. Revise your assignments and ask me your tutor for these modules in this season. I'm your tutor for this module. And if you have got any other questions in your preparations, please feel free to contact me. From the beginning of this lesson, I have shared my contact details with you people. So please feel free to contact me. Don't just now call me when you know that it's only one day for the exams. That's when you are calling me. You cannot find the modules. You cannot find the notes. You cannot find what. The notes are not on the portals. You don't have the correct manual or study guides at the last minutes. Make sure that you have all those study materials. Make sure that they are on your portal. And if they are not on your portal, please make sure that you contact us so that we make sure that we load them on time beforehand. Please do not do things at the last minute. The help that you want, it might not be there at the last minute. So I believe we have come to an end of this module, and I want to wish you all the best for your upcoming exams. And lastly, I would like to say we all are aware of the pandemic that we are in. Please take care of yourself and observe the safety measures that are being put in place for your own safety and the loved ones. Take care and all the best for your exams.